Alright guys, welcome back to the final part of the show, but I still have two more games. They are not as long as the Belshire Vestige game, but they are pretty fun as well and quite back and forth. So I just want to jump into the first game immediately, which once more I just got these replays like 2 hours ago because it was a very last minute thing, but I wanted to do something fun anyways, and I think watching community replays is always fun. I already fast forward to the first start of the game, as we have Harbinger, I guess? I guess is the clan. He's going to play against Icy. Now Newkirk City is a map where something you often see is either mothership cores just flying around here over in the middle, or people love to go Stargate. Of course, with only airspace between the bases, it is awesome to just send Stargate units, and hey, you can potentially deal a lot of damage. And that is what we are going to see in this game as well. Alright, so after the opening phase, we see that so far it's an exact mirror. This is a Diamond League replay, by the way, guys. It's both guys were in Diamond League. You have a little bit too much energy over here on this Nexus. Take a look at on the other side of the map. We see Icy is doing a much better job. I am positive that Harbinger is the person who sent me this replay, unless the Icy just really want to send me the replay where he won. Well, you can see both players are going to open up with an Oracle, which was super popular in the first weeks of PvP. These days it is still a little bit popular, but because it was so popular, a lot of people like to open up with Phoenixes, and hey, then you put yourself in a fantastic position. It's Stargate against Stargate. Oracle did no damage. I have Phoenix advantage. Weehaw, I love this matchup. But in this case, both people start opening up with an Oracle, and there is nothing wrong with that. We see Harbinger immediately putting units into the mineral line. That is the right thing to do. And we see that Icy was a little later with that. Perhaps he did not see this Oracle make its way over. But not too many probes die. He pulls away probes. Of course, they're still going to die. Actually, there's only a single sentry over here, so these probes will still die. While this Oracle is going to have a much tougher time, certainly because there's a Phoenix as well. So basically, the opening phase is awesome for Harbinger right now. And to be honest, like being 10 workers ahead in this phase of the game, normally should almost be game over, should be curtains. This Oracle did absolutely nothing. So I can imagine that you feel frustrated after losing this game. Something that your opponent did right though, and you didn't, is that he dropped the Nexus immediately in the natural. Now if you have a PvP, if both players open up with an Oracle, and hey, you guys saw the Oracles high-fiving each other here mid-air, it is very unlikely that you can ever die to anything that follows up immediately. Like 4-gate with Phoenix play is really not good anymore, because a Photon Overcharge just shuts that stuff down. So you could have dropped this Nexus as soon as you had 400 minerals. By now his Nexus is done, yours is not. Now I still like your position way more than I like your opponent's position, because it's Stargate against Stargate. You did way more economic damage early on, and you have a Phoenix advantage. So the fact that your Nexus is much later is not going to kill you right now, but if you would have had this Nexus up immediately, you would have probably felt a lot more confident. After you saw that he lost way more mining time than you did, he lost way more probes, you're going Phoenixes. I think you could have flown in immediately with 2 Phoenix, because you want to see, hey, is he switching to gateway units, or is this guy actually going to make Phoenixes? You're going to do that right now with 4 Phoenix, which is not bad, there's nothing wrong with that. And even if you're not able to kill probes, you should feel so confident right now, because hey, you see this, he has 2 Phoenix, you have 4 Phoenix, you know you killed a lot of probes early on. So basically what you want to do right now is just keep building Phoenixes. That's literally the only thing what you want to do. I would even drop a second Stargate immediately. Of course you should have taken this Nexus way quicker. That's by far the biggest mistake so far. But even from this point on, you're in a fantastic position, and I really think you could just straight up win this game, as you're still 11 workers ahead. Like you're building an insane amount of probes, showing that you really want to expand. I guess you just kind of slipped your mind, you forgot about it. Anyways, it's still not the end of the world. You were very worried, by the way, about these Phoenixes and about the army over here in the main. You definitely don't want to lose units, but if you see Stalkers over here and you see 2 Phoenix over here, just fly immediately with your Phoenixes and see, hey, is my opponent expanding? You would have seen that he was, and you would have been able to get 4 or 5 probes for free once more. Now instead you do the only thing you never want to do in a Phoenix war. Once you are the player with Phoenix advantages, which hey, you're doing right now, and you actually kill 2 Phoenix and lose only 1, I believe, so that's still not too bad. That's actually a really good pickup. But you want to be really careful. You definitely don't want to start lifting up stuff, which I do not believe that you do. But I do think that, like right now, you still have a massive Phoenix advantage. You see that he activated Photon Overcharge. There's no need for you to ever fight, because the longer this goes on, like even if you chrono boost Phoenixes like a madman right now, you're able to do the exact same thing despite still being on 1 Stargate. I think the moment you see that your opponent is still making Phoenix, you know it's going to go into a Phoenix war. Just drop a second Stargate as well. Just keep making Phoenixes. You'll be more than fine. Right now it's 1 Stargate against 2 Stargate. You have more Phoenixes. There's no need for you to really want to fight. But I believe right now, like on the worst moment, soon actually this time you're gonna fly into the natural. You have so much energy, so you're gonna get more free probes. This is just like the best position there ever is. You're lifting up 1 probe here. It's a little bit expensive because you lost a Phoenix for a probe, but still won't kill you. Yeah, 3 Zealots now over here. I believe that you lost, I think 1 Oracle just flew in, or actually a couple of Zealots run into natural, so you lost a few probes. But still, you're ahead in workers, you're on even basis, and you were ahead in Phoenixes for a long time, but you kind of just like neglected your Phoenix production. If you know that your opponent is going double Stargate, you should have just done the same thing, man. You were ahead in Phoenixes, so if you are ahead once and you have better economy, which you had because you killed so many workers early on, as long as you just keep building Phoenixes, you're always going to have more Phoenixes, and it might be a boring playstyle, but it's also a very effective one. Instead, you start producing a Void Ray, which I don't think was really the right thing to do. On this moment, after you didn't make Phoenixes for such a long time, and you know your opponent wasn't double Stargate, there's no reason for you to ever be on this side of the map, because you gave away the Phoenix advantage, and now instead you're going to drop the 2nd Stargate now, something you should have done a long time ago. And as long as your opponent is producing Phoenixes, I keep repeating myself, but that's really the moral of the story. If you have a Phoenix advantage, just keep doing the same, man. If you guys both do the same, and you had a lead early on, you're gonna win this game. Right now, you gave away your entire Phoenix control, so now you're making Phoenixes again, which doesn't make sense to me because you know your opponent has more Phoenixes. So if he would do the correct thing, and that is produce building Phoenixes after probably, which is what he will do after he starts making these Void Rays, yeah, it's gonna be tough for you to really catch up. Worker-wise, it's still an even game. Army supply, you're still a little bit ahead, but that's because you have a lot of units on the ground, which do not really matter too much if you go back to making Phoenixes, which is what you're doing right now. So basically, early game, you should really drop the Nexus. There's nothing for you to worry about. And if your opponent is making Phoenix while you're ahead, just keep doing the same thing. Gonna fast forward, because this, despite the way that this played out, and in a high-level game, people would have like drive you nuts with just killing your probes all the time after you lost the Phoenix advantage. But your opponent decided to be a nice guy, kind of is like, you know what, I'm gonna let you catch up in Phoenixes again. And so that is basically what happened. That's not what's supposed to happen, but that is what's happening in this game. Now instead your opponent is gonna sit back and he's gonna make an incredibly strong air army. You have a lot of units on the ground, which I also think is questionable. It is very tough to scout, because every time you scout you take the risk of losing Phoenixes, and I just told you don't be out on the map if you do not have like a superior air army. So what you could have done is just make an hallucinated Phoenix and just suicide it and see what he's up to. Because right now the amount of supply that you have on the ground is 3 times as high as your opponent has, but your opponent is going to win the air battle, which means that you have nothing to really kill these Phoenixes / carriers / Void Rays. Income wise, I do think that you went up to a very good amount of workers, up to 70. That's nothing wrong with that. You even got a couple of DTs, which I think is very smart, because you know that your opponent didn't have a robo, didn't have too much mobile detection. So I think you're able to take out this base. Well, you have a DT in the main as well. Nice little DT run by. So this is still, you're putting yourself in an okay position, but now your biggest problem still is, in my opinion, that you have 5 Immortals. You have 10 Zealots over here, and you have a couple of Zealots out there somewhere on the map, and they will all do absolutely nothing for you in the big fight. And this is something that, after you've seen these carriers, after seeing the entire army, slowly but steady, you want to start wasting some supply. This is something what you often see players do. Even in pro games, you see people literally throwing away units, whether it's roaches or, in some rare cases, even Immortals. Because yes, Immortals are fantastic units, but if your opponent is maxing out on air, your Immortals are going to be useless. So you might as well just kind of like secretly rally them like this over to the top and try to go for a run by instead of what these CTs are doing. Or just grab a Warp Prism, drop them in the main, and hey, they kill pilots really quick, maybe even take out the Stargate or whatever. Slow him down in any ways, but there's no use for you to have 5 Immortals in your army, because they're just not going to cut it for you. So despite being maxed out right now, in a straight up fight, you're probably already going to lose, because these carriers, they have so much HP. It's 450 hit points, and well, you have a bunch of Void Rays. Your opponent's even going to add in some Tempest as well. Now I'm already like waiting for the point where once more I think the wrong player is the wrong player. See these Phoenixes fly in. This is obviously a pretty big mistake, because you're losing your Phoenixes really quick to your opponent's Phoenixes, and carriers, they can soak up so much damage. So the moment your Phoenixes are fighting a carrier, his Phoenixes have free reign over yours, and you're losing a big clunk of your like potential anti-air damage in this fight right here and right now already. You're going to even feedbacking a couple of Phoenixes. So right now, if you take a look at what can actually potentially for you kill all these carriers and kill the 5 Void Rays, the 6 carriers and the 8 Phoenixes. You have 7 Void Rays, you have 3 Archons, and you have 4 Stalkers. So obviously, even though on the ground you're going to crush whatever units he has on the ground, but it's irrelevant because you're never ever going to kill all these carriers. And that is exactly what happens. Your Void Rays are also focusing Phoenixes, something that doesn't make the difference in this fight, but normally is a big mistake. Void Rays don't deal extra damage to Phoenix, while they of course deal extra damage to other Void Rays or even carriers. So that is what you want to do, but the biggest mistake is just that you had too much useless supply in your army, and as silly as it sounds, that's really what it boils down to. Those Immortals were not going to do anything for you. You want to trade it out. Yeah, he goes ballsy with a couple of Templars. Right now you know what time it is, so you're trying to make a couple of Stalkers, trying to make a couple of Archons, but just not enough anti-air. Despite being in a good position early on, despite being in a better position later on, there were a lot of things you could have done better, but the biggest fight is probably, or like the main fight, the fight that happened eventually, is probably what confused you. It's like, hey, how did I get owned that badly? Just not enough anti-air, and also later on, if it would be a close scenario, never ever let your Void Rays focus Phoenixes. It's just the wrong thing to do. You don't want to do that. Let Phoenix fight Phoenix, let Void Rays fight Void Ray or Void Ray carriers, never the other way around. And if it's like a mass air army, seriously, like try your own Phoenix to take out his Phoenix, because Phoenixes do have pretty awesome DPS on Void Rays and stuff as well, but if his Phoenixes are shooting your Phoenix, they die double as quick, and then he's gonna have that advantage later on. So crazy air PvP, but boil down to a couple of things. But my biggest thing is still early on, drop a Nexus much quicker when you know that he's doing the exact same thing as you, but you're ahead. You don't have to be afraid of anything. You can drop the Nexus. In that phase, your gateway units will be useful. And if you have a Phoenix advantage and he's double Stargate, just keep chrono boosting Phoenixes, and you're never gonna lose the air stuff, and you will never lose the game. It is time for the last game of the day. I'm already a little bit over time, but this is a cool game as well. It starts off a little bit slow, but actually played on a pretty high level, and I believe the Protoss player is from Venezuela, unless I confused him with one of the other guys. But I really enjoyed this replay, and I thought it was a pretty well played game as well. So let's jump into the final game of the day. Maydork is our Protoss. And he is playing against Zerg. For everyone who just tuned in once more, this was a little replay show. Normally, this was not supposed to happen today, so it's something that I really just put together in the last moment, and I want to do something fun. And then I would have, if I could have only made a couple of people really happy with this, and I wanted to do it, because I was supposed to do first casting and then a 2v2 show, and this was just something like, 3 hours ago, community, help me, and of course you guys did help me. And of course Andre was there too to help me. Anyways, Maydork is our Protoss player from Venezuela. Which is, I can only imagine, an awesome country. I've never been there, but I do remember when I was in elementary school, I had a girl from Venezuela in my class. And she learned Dutch like within 3 months. I was so impressed. That was like 20 years ago, but I still remember. Anyway, so both these guys are in Master League, by the way. I should add that as well. So this also explains that this is already a little bit more to what we normally see. The Zerg going 3 bases really quick. Protoss going for Nexus first, like a boss. Nexus before Forge. I like it, man. Don't be afraid. Take a stand. And after this, just starting chrono boost, chrono boost, chrono boost. See a couple of Zealots running around. Of course, Zerg just wants to get his economy going. He's only on 24 drones right now. I think that could have been a little... No, he's 5 drones ahead. That's pretty standard. Overlord pokes in, trying to see your assimilator. So far, what you're basically saying right now is, hey, you know what? I'm going to go for 1 gate robo. Absolutely nothing wrong with this. Could potentially be Immortal All-In, is also still a solid build to just go up to 3 bases. The only thing that I have an issue with this build is that if your opponent just straight up makes Mutalisk, I think you're going to have such a tough time to actually deal with it. And this is one of the reasons why I personally don't enjoy opening like this if I want to go up to 3 bases, which I know you want to do, because it's so tough to deal with Mutas, and I would almost say even mission impossible unless you're really on top of things and you always have Stalkers in the right positions, your economy is great, and your opponent messes up a thing or two. But it is still a solid opening. There's nothing wrong with it. You're gonna follow it up with 3 gates. You're gonna expand. The beauty of this, of course, against like Stargate openings, that you can expand much quicker. And you dropping this Nexus at 8 minutes and 50 seconds also showed us. I like how you're doing that though. Like, I would have still been a little bit afraid of whatever I could potentially deal with. But you were right there. Your Zerg opponent though knows that you were going up to 3 bases ridiculously quickly. And then there are 2 things that Zerg can do. either they make an insane amount of units and try to kill you right here, right now. But that is kind of what I guess you would like to see happen, because hey, you have sentries, you have immortals, you're gonna have photon overcharge as well, right? Do you have mothership core? Yes, of course you do. But your opponent is doing, in my opinion, the right thing. It's just like, hey, if you go up to 3 bases really quick, I'm gonna go up to 4 bases really quick, and I'm just gonna get a crazy economy. And taking a look at the work account, we see that he's already at 76. There's not too much you could have done about that. But what I would have liked to see you do is, even though you're scouting pretty damn actively, is at least like kind of threaten him a little bit. I know you're going to do this later on, but if he's not making any units at all, just start moving out. You have a mothership core, you have recall, free teleport. It is absolutely awesome. Giving him absolute freedom is just giving him comfort that you actually don't want to give him. But other than that, I really don't want to be too critical, because I don't think you're playing all that wrong. So your opponent is just getting this ridiculous economy right now of 86 drones. That is something that you're just going to have to deal with if you like playing the Robo Expand into really quick 3 bases. You're giving Zerg a lot of freedom, they're going to have an insane economy. I do love this little poke that you made. This is the moment where Zerg is starting to make units. Of course, normally like the 12-minute push could be way stronger than this. But the way that the game unfolded, you know he doesn't have a lot of units. He knows that you don't have a lot of units, so he doesn't expect you to move out. You're still doing it. You're going to drop some force fields, and you're going to take out this base, which if this would have been the 4th base, I think this would have been massive. But your opponent really smartly took his 4th base on the left top side, which I think is a little bit harder to engage. It's just a little bit further away. You back off immediately. Right thing to do, in my opinion. So yeah, this was a small little victory, but don't think that it brought you farther ahead than it really did, because at the end of the day, that was just 300 to 400 minerals that he lost over there, and he had an absolutely insane economy. You didn't pressure him all game, every day, which of course was hard with your opening. So yes, this was good, but don't let it fool yourself. It's not as good as it looked, because I always think like, hey, I just took off a base. That's awesome, man. I'm gonna be ahead. I'm gonna go up to 4 bases. It's gonna be even. My Protoss ball is gonna crush the Zerg, right? It doesn't really work like that. In the old days, it would have worked like that if there were no Broodlords. Of course, when the Broodlord infested was a little bit different. These days, you're going to have to worry about Vipers, and that's what your opponent is making as well. And he was doing that so well. 2,000 minerals for your Zerg opponent. As you can see, he's quite rich. He's already dropping Ultralisk Cavern as well. He's just playing a really solid game, in my opinion, the Zerg is. So, there's absolutely nothing wrong with losing to this guy, as he's playing pretty damn well. He's going to drop Blinding Clouds on your cannons. So one thing you could potentially do in the future is maybe get a cannon here, and then one over here, instead of like clumping them up like you did. But really minor details, of course, not something that I would always do either. You have Storm now ready already as well, so this is the moment where you probably feel like, man, I have Storm, I have Feedback, and I have Colossus. This should go really well, right? You even get off a few feedbacks, but your Colossus still kind of get pulled in. But you drop a lot of really good Storms, so this fight didn't go all that poor for you. It's not a massive victory either, because your opponent has an insane amount of money, but hey, it's still pretty good for you. You survive, you keep your 4th base alive. I would have loved to see you use your Mothership Core to activate Photon Overcharge. Might seem like a small thing, but even in those massive fights, it still makes a world of difference, man. Now there is something that a lot of Zergs like to do. Of course, we all know the Muda transition, and I think if this guy would have made 20 Mutalisk right now, it would have been a little bit tricky for you, despite being on 3 Stargates. If he flies in with 20 meters immediately, you're going to be in trouble. He does the other transition, which is also really good. Instead of remaxing on the Roach, Hydra, Viper, which is not even like a terrible thing to do either, he decided to make 9 Ultras. And this is something that, yes, Void Rays are awesome against Ultras, but you do want to have strong units on the ground as well. You have 1 Archon over here. I think you're going to have a few more soon. But if you know that it's going to be like 9, 10 Ultras on the map, you really want to get like 4 or 5 Archons, 2, 3, 4 Immortals as well. Because then it's suddenly not about air control anymore. It's all about having enough units on the ground to actually keep everything alive. Because yes, Void Rays will eventually kill Ultras. But if that happens like a little too late and the Ultras kill everything else that's on the ground and they take out your 4th base as well, which is also important, it's still not worth it. I think on this point, like you did a really good job scouting throughout the entire game. I really want to compliment you. The way that you use hallucination, I think it was awesome. So it's definitely not a mistake. But after a big fight, Zerg has the luxury that they only need 1 production building for whatever they do. So if they have an Ultralisk, if they have a Spy, if they have a Hydralisk, and if they have an Invitation Pit, you want to immediately know what he's remaxing on. If it's Roaches, Immortals, and I mean, well, that would be scary. I mean, Roaches, Hydras, and Vipers. You just do the same thing what you're doing, and getting a couple of Voiders in the mix is not a bad thing to do, not at all. But you at least want to know what you're up against. having those Colossus, having Storm basically knows that you don't have to worry too much about this. The Ultras, however, is a different story. Taking a look at your unit composition right now, you have 3 Immortals, 2 Archons. Are all Immortals here? No, you only have 2 here. I guess the other one's on the way. So it is like this is like an army that's almost there to deal with it. If you would have like +1 or +2 from both of them, it would have been completely there to deal with. Of course, well, he actually has 0 attack upgrades on his melee unit, so I guess this is one of the reasons why you didn't expect this transition either. But like seeing this right now is just like, okay, my Void Rays, if they charge up, they're gonna kill these Ultras really hard. This is not bad, but I know what happens. You're still trying to harass with DTs as well, which I think is awesome. Your opponent is just a good player. He was prepared for that. But still, A for effort. It's a good try. The biggest thing here is that your army is very, very clumped up, and that's bad for 2 reasons. 1, Ultralists do splash damage, and even though these guys are not doing too much damage, but 2, Blinding Cloud is oh so massive, and you really do not want to clump up your Protoss army. Look how quick everything dies. You had a better army, but right now your Void Rays are still dealing with the few Hydras. He didn't have too much, but what that does mean is that the damage that's being done on those Hydras is A, slow, and B, takes away so much potential damage that you could have done on all these Ultras. So clumping up the army was bad, and Void Rays, I think when you have so many Void Rays and he has so many Ultras, you should have just ignored these 3-4 Hydras and just right click on the Ultras, try to kill them one by one. That's basically what you're doing right now. You're getting Dark Templars as well, very smart. There is no more Overseers, so you're getting DTs, but man, the Ultras are super, super beefy. You didn't have air upgrades yet, but I don't think that made the biggest difference. If your Immortals and Archons would have just been alive a little bit longer, if you would have had Photon Overcharge once more, I think you would have been able to keep this base alive, and you would have been fine. Like, this is obviously not cheap for the Zerg, but we shouldn't forget that he's on 5 bases, so he can remax on whatever he wants. Ultras took the wrong exit. And despite this being pretty expensive for him, he killed a lot of expensive units from you as well. He took out your Nexus, he killed 2 Immortals, or maybe even 3, he killed 2 Archons, he killed some High Templars, and he killed the remaining Stalkers that you have. So, as silly as it was, that was very, very good trade by him. And he's just remaxing immediately on Hydras, knowing that he just took out your Colossus, he took out your couple of High Templars, even though you do have some Storms. But he also knows that you have a lot of supply in Void Ray right now, and that you're not as rich as him. So remaxing on Hydras I think is very smart. Once more he drops a Blinding Cloud. It's really, the Zerg is pretty damn good. So there's really no shame in losing to him. I think he played a pretty good game. I think you played a good game. But I think this small minor engagement over here, A, you seeing the Ultras too late. But B, even more the army positioning was really the biggest deal for you. And after losing all those Void Rays immediately, Void Rays stand no chance against Hydras if they are as exposed like that. If you still have 3 Colossus alive, it's a different ballgame once more, because then those Hydras are going to have to be super careful. Colossus and Storm would absolutely melt everything that he has, so you would be fine, but right now your Void Rays were just too exposed. And it's game over. And you said, I think this was my best PvZ at the same time, and still, or the best and the worst maybe at the same time, and still it wasn't enough. I think you played a really good game. There's really no need to be too hard on yourself. Your opening was cool. I think you scouted really well. Your army composition was good. Your little poke denying his 5th base, which could have been his 4th base. I think that was awesome too. So I think overall you played a really good game. The biggest deal is, after a really big fight, after you kill so many Roaches, Hydras, and you survive against the Vipers, immediately send out another scout. You want to see what is this thing that he's remaxing on. What should I be worried about? Even if you only see it 30 seconds before it actually attacks you, it gives you that extra time to prepare. And now I think you saw those Ultras a little too late. The guy still had 2 Vipers as well, which was awesome by him. The combination of clumping up your army and just not really having enough Immortals/Archons to deal with those Ultras costed you the game. If you spread out those units a little bit more, activate Photon Overcharge, and yeah, just don't have everything clumped up, I think you're more than fine. Your Void Rays focus those Ultras immediately. If you kill those 9 Ultras and you keep that base alive and you don't lose your Colossus, you win the game, man. So it was a good game. Don't be hard on yourself. You played well. If you keep playing like that, you're gonna win a lot of PvZs. So that was it, guys. I went a little longer than expected. Once more, this was a little bit of unorganized, because this was really a last moment thing. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do next week. I might do the same thing if you guys really enjoy me taking a look at community replays. I find it fun. It's definitely not something I mind doing. So we will see. I'll keep you guys posted. Take a look at my stream. I'm definitely going to be streaming a lot this week, as I'm planning to play a lot. So twitch.tv/RotterdaM's08. You guys can watch me play, and then maybe you guys that can give me some tips. So thanks for watching, and see ya.